What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, man. We are one day away from this fight with Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia, and I'm going to do a breakdown and a prediction for this fight. And I'm trying to. It took me a while to get this done. Probably should have done it a few days ago, but really, it was very difficult to separate the fact that I gotta admit, I'm a big supporter of Errol Spence Jr. I think that Errol Spence Jr. he and Terrence Crawford are the real fight that I want to see at 147 pounds. And I never really liked this fight from the beginning because I thought that no matter what happened, like if Mikey Garcia wins the fight, then that's not going to push us towards anywhere closer to unification because he's not going to fight Sean Porter. He's not going to fight Keith Thurman, right? He's going to move around and do different things. I never really thought this guy was about unification in a division. So I had to kind of put all that to the side and my personal feelings about Mikey Garcia and just look at the fight and tell you what I think is going to happen. So I'm about to do that. I want to welcome you back to the channel first, though, subscribers. And if you're not subscribed, I hope you accept my invitation or let me extend an invitation and ask you to hit that subscription bell and then hit it twice for the bell icon so that you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, check us out in the morning when we do our live stream. 10:15 starts between 10:30 and 10:45 a.m. Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time. Also, check out the Patreon. We got a lot of really good content over there. The Patreon community is growing. It's really growing well. So I hope you'll join me. I think you really like the content, non-boxing content that we have over there. All right. So first, let me look at what I think the real strength of these guys are, and then I'll look at the challenges for both of them and let you know how I think the fight's going to play out. Okay, I'll start with Mikey Garcia. I think Mikey Garcia is a very smart fighter. He has one of the best 1-2s that in boxing. Ever since I've started watching him when he was with HBO, he's fighting Orlando Salido, fighting Juan Ma. I always just noticed how nicely he follows his jab up with a straight right hand, and he's got excellent timing, catching people on the way in. He's a strong at 130 pounds, 126, 130 pounds. He was a very strong fighter who, could just time you, catch you, and really hurt you. As he moved up in weight, after he took off his several years, and now he's what I kind of think of as the new Mikey Garcia. He has a lot of the same things, man. A lot of the same things, but his power is just enough to keep people's hands at home and get a lot of respect out of them. I really like how he follows up his right with a left hook when he's fighting a southpaw, like when he fought Juan Ma. I liked his lead left hooks, very solid lead left hooks. I wouldn't say it's terribly quick, but definitely very good timing, keeps his space very well. Just an all-around very, very good fighter. He has better footwork than I think a lot of people give him credit for, in that he moves back. He fights on the back foot pretty well, or very well, I think. Now, doesn't do a lot of excessive movement, but when he wants to move backwards and get away from people, he can get that space away from the opponents that he's fought to date. So I really think that those are his biggest strengths. I don't think at this point, like at 135 pounds and 140, that he really has devastating power for somebody that's at 135 or 140 pounds. But he definitely has enough crack to get you thinking. And if you're just going to let him hit you 3-4 times in a row, he probably can get you out of there. Versus just kind of having what he had at 130, which was he has one punch knockout power at 130 pounds. I don't think that one punch knockout power transitioned up to 135 or transitioned up to 140. So, that's what I think his real strengths are. As far as what his weaknesses are, I guess his weaknesses are, I don't think Mikey Garcia is relatively, you can hit him with 1 or 2 shots. And I saw that when the Juan Ma fight. You see it in the Sergey Lipinets fight. In the Robert Easter fight, you could see that a very long jab, because he's not a very tall guy, a very long jab of Robert Easter had some success early on, even though it really wasn't a tremendous, he didn't have a lot of pop on that. But Mikey Garcia is somebody that does get hit. And there's a question for me about Mikey Garcia's willingness to get into a fight if he's in a dog fight, a sustained dog fight, how he's going to be able to handle that, because he's really not been in it. To the extent that he has been in it was the Orlando Salido fight, and I believe in the last half of that fight, he started getting hit more and more by punches that he should have seen coming and been able to avoid. But Orlando Salido kept putting pressure on, and I think that pressure was starting to get to Mikey. I know that he left because of the broken nose, but that broken nose came because of a headbutt from a lot of pressure. Now, Errol Spence Jr., I think Errol Spence Jr.'s strengths are that he has a very, very good jab. He has, I think, just kind of like Mikey, man, Errol Spence has underrated defense. And the reason I say that is because he does not necessarily, he parries punches very well. He blocks punches with his gloves very well. I think that he's very defensively responsible with his jabs. He has the ability to have a very hard, stiff right jab. Very hard, very stiff right jab, but he also gets that right hand back and protects his chin very well. He has, I think his head movement is a little underrated. He's not constantly moving it, side to side, where you have like a lot of him just moving off the line, back and forth. But he does get his head off of the line to block punches, and a lot of times he'll like take his gloves with him. He'll be in the high guard while he moves his head out of position. So I think that his defense is a little underrated, especially for somebody that is pushing the pace so much. And that, obviously, there's a lot of tremendous body punching from Errol Spence, but not just to the kidneys, not just to the side of the body, but just straight down the middle. Jabs straight down the middle, jabs to the chest. He throws a lot of combinations. Even when you tie him up, he's getting you off you and throwing a lot of punches, and his pressure is just a lot of pressure over a lot of rounds. And I think that, like, the Kell Brook fight, for me, that's the last fight that I watched, was Kell Brook. Kell Brook, he really broke down Kell Brook. And I know there are people that say Kell Brook was after the Gennady Golovkin fight and all that, but I think first of all, I think Kell Brooks he changes angles very well. Kell Brook is very good and enjoys fighting southpaws, which is something that is kind of rare, or at least that's the word out on him. I didn't go back and watch a lot of Kell Brook's fights against southpaws, but Kell Brook, in the lead up to the fight, Kell Brook and Engel and these guys said that they really do specialize in fighting southpaws. So the ability for Kell Brook to come over the top of the jab for Errol Spence Jr., changing angles on Errol Spence Jr., these are all things that Errol Spence Jr. adjusted to. While he had issues with it in the first half of the fight, he really overcame it and started going downhill on him on the second half of the fight. And if you look at, and I'll get on to what I think happens with the two of them. The problem for me, for Mikey Garcia, the biggest problem with the Mikey Garcia for Errol Spence, I believe, is the length. Because the length of Errol Spence Jr., I think, is going to make it harder for him to time him. But even if he does, Errol Spence Jr. is so, being a southpaw and being so responsible with his guard, I don't think he's going to really be able to catch Errol Spence flush. But even if he does catch, Mikey usually pushes off, tries to get a little bit of space after that, and Errol Spence Jr. is constantly taking away that space. I think the biggest problem for Mikey Garcia in this fight is going to be the pressure. I don't know if Mikey's not able to pot shot 1-2, jab right, left hook, or excuse me. I think what more than likely he's going to do is switch it between a jab and a lead left hook, right? Jab, lead left hook to the right hand, because the lead left hook He'll try to get Errol Spence to dip back to his right, and then it'll be there for the straight right hand. I don't see Mikey Garcia being able to land a lot of straight right hands on Errol because I just don't. I'm not that impressed with Mikey Garcia's hand speed. So I really think that the deciding factor in this fight is going to be pressure, and the fact that Mikey Garcia is, the further the fight goes along, the more pressure there's going to be on Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia doesn't have a lot of the advantages or he's at a more of a disadvantage against Errol Spence than I think Kell Brook was, because I think that Kell Brook is physically stronger than Mikey Garcia, significantly physically more stronger than Errol Spence Jr. And I know that there's been talk out of the Garcia camp about having bigger training, having bigger sparring partners, but I doubt very much that you're having, southpaw people that are really in there trying to hurt Mikey in sparring and are really trying to push him and shove him to the point where he's already broken down. So when Mikey said about bigger guys, he's like, sometimes, they push me back, sometimes I pushed them back. If you look at the Kell Brook fight, there was plenty of times that Kell Brook pushed Errol Spence Jr. back. But Errol Spence Jr., even when he's getting pushed back, is punishing him on the way back. It was harder I'm sure it's harder for the crowd to see. I didn't notice it as much until I watched the fight a few times. But even when Kell Brook, who's a very big, strong guy, grabbed Errol Spence and walked 3 steps back, Errol Spence Jr. is still hitting him to the body, hitting him on the shoulder, cuffing him to the ear, and as soon as his hands got freed, there's 3 or 4 punches, 2-3 punches on the inside, even though Errol Spence Jr. is getting pushed back. And I don't know if Mikey's going to have, I don't think Mikey's even going to have the strength to grab Errol and move him back like that. So, all in all, man, I think that this is more than likely going to be a stoppage for Errol Spence Jr. I think more than likely it's going to be a stoppage in the early second half of the fight. Maybe round 8, maybe round 9, something like that. But I think that it's really going to come from just an accumulation of physical pressure and Mikey Garcia really tiring out. I don't see him just being able to. If Errol Spence Jr. was the type of fighter, like if you compared a Tarver to a Bernard Hopkins, like when Bernard Hopkins moved up and fought Tarver. Tarver's not really a pressure fighter. He's not somebody really that, he is, he's a southpaw, but he is he's a jab straight, he's a jab straight left hand type of fighter, keeps it pace. I don't really think that he's the type of guy that would continually put pressure and physically maul the smaller man. Now, when you have a bigger guy that is going to maul you, even when you see a smaller guy fight like a Andre Ward, who fought a bigger guy in Kovalev, but it was the smaller guy that is physical, that's grabbing, that's holding, that's pulling your arm, that's hitting you on the hip or hitting you on the arm or hitting you on your gloves. That can take a lot of energy out of the bigger guy. But when it's a bigger guy doing that to a smaller guy, I think that it really just creates a lot more problems for the smaller guy. I'm not going to completely count out Mikey Garcia, despite my rhetoric, about really not caring for Mikey Garcia. And I really don't. I don't care about Mikey Garcia. I think Mikey Garcia should try to unify 135 pounds. I didn't like how he set on that WBC belt. It just seems like Mikey's really out for Mikey, which is cool for boxing. I understand it's a business and, he's doing that, but I'm more of a fan of fighters, even like a fan of a guy like Vasily Lomachenko that says he just really wants to collect all those belts. He's less of a businessman than he is than he's trying to be a fighter. But Mikey Garcia is a very good fighter. Even if you look at the predictions that are being made, most people are having a lot of people want Mikey Garcia to do well, want Mikey Garcia to win, have a lot of respect for Mikey Garcia. But I think that's a little different than, really saying, hey, man, I think Mikey Garcia is going to be able to outmuscle, be able to keep this guy. Basically, man, this guy is an animal off of him for that long a time, man. over the 12 rounds, it's just going to be real difficult. But anyway, that's my prediction and my breakdown of the fight. You know, like I said, there's a chance Mikey Garcia can get through the 12 rounds. But if he gets through the 12 rounds with Errol Spence, man, don't expect him to be the same fighter, you know, in his next fight, man, because that's just a lot of beating taking place. But anyway, it is what it is. And with that, I'm out.